Your thoughts shape your reality. Every time you break your word to yourself, you're reinforcing to yourself that your thoughts don't mean shit. Because anything that you think, you speak, whether you realize it or not. And it shows up in conversations, in subtle underlying tones that you use. What you really feel comes out. You know, the scripture says, the thoughts of the diligent lead only to plenteousness, but the hasty only to want. And that's Proverbs 18 and 21, I believe. I'll post it in the comments down below. And when you focus on that verse, it tells you exactly how your thoughts will manifest your reality, the way you think. Now, many of you are stuck in your life because you've been telling yourself stories from traumatic events that happen, and you've been looking at life from a glass half empty your entire life instead of realizing reality is always much more balanced. Good and bad things happen, but good people look for the good in everything, bad people look for the bad in everything. So the way you see life is a reflection of how you see yourself, okay? And many of you want a great life. You want to become a great man, but you don't see yourself as a great man because you don't think of yourself as a great man. You're still looking at your reality and saying to yourself, this is a reflection of who I am, instead of realizing that day by day, seed by seed, you could plant yourself like a tree and grow differently each and every day. And you'll get stuck in life because your self image, the way you perceive yourself, never actually changes. And that starts with the way you think. I'll never forget, I was in the I was in the warehouse. So I work a warehouse job. And I was praying to the Most High. And I had this sudden idea. I said, Lord, how do you think? How is a man supposed to think? And it was a crazy idea. It was a crazy idea. And the scripture that he revealed to me was that scripture right there. The thoughts of the diligent lead only to plenteousness, but the hasty only to want. Want in the scriptures is talking about lack. If you're constantly thinking about the things that you lack, you're impatient, you're hasty. So what is that? What happens? You start producing rush results. You start panicking anytime things are not going your way. And that's all a manifestation of how you really see yourself and how you really think. But the thoughts of the diligent lead only to plenteousness. What does that mean? It means the man that understands that things take time, that he moves precisely and with wisdom, he's going to have an abundant life because he sees himself as an abundant man. See, men in power move calmly, composed, because they understand they're under control. So they have life under control because they're in control. When you feel restless, when you don't feel in control, you are rushed, you are panicked, your words are talking up, you're getting, softer, you start hesitating, you start shrinking, and it's because you are rushed. You're a rushed man. And your self-image reflects that. Your reality reflects that. So the way you think about yourself is true. Whatever you think is true. So how does this affect everything else? A lot of y'all, a lot of y'all have been infected by red pill content, and you think woman ain't shit. So what do you think you're gonna be looking for subconsciously? Woman that ain't shit. If you don't see yourself as a good man or a great man, what are you gonna find? Women that are bad for you. And you know what? Every time you do, it reaffirms to you that women are bad for me. See, these women ain't shit. You know how many dudes talk like that? And they're basing it off of how other men see women instead of their own experiences. Because if you go through your own experiences, the only reason that you would have bad women is because you don't believe yourself to be a good man. Now, of course, that's not always the case. Yes, there is a lot of women that are bad. They're bad, but there's also a lot of good women. Just the same thing with men. But whatever you are, you attract. Whatever you think, you will find. Seek and you shall find. A lot of us are seeking women that are no good for us. It is what it is. Well, how does that apply to, you know, money? Well, if you've always think of yourself as broke or you ain't have money, yeah, it's because a part of you believes that you don't deserve it. Okay, so you look for anything that reconfirms to you who you are. So your mind has to change first, then your reality will reflect who you've become in that moment. But you continually move forward into the version of you that you want manifested in this reality reveals himself. And all of us are already that version of himself, but we just don't move like it yet. And you have to move like him yet so the Most High can reflect and respond to you and say, okay, this man can actually receive all the blessings that he's asking for. But a lot of us don't want to be blessed because it's going to require us to be able to receive. And if you're ambitious, you're competent, you know, a lot of your identity is based off of proving and suffering. You don't know how to handle success, which is why you self sabotage. Or if you do gain success, there's always a sense of, man, it's only a matter of time before God takes it away from me. It's only a matter of time before I lose it. And that's all a manifestation from your thoughts about how you really, really feel about yourself. You know, those ugly parts you ignore? Yeah, those parts are speaking louder and louder every day that your identity gets stretched. So you find yourself self sabotaging your life, because you're a man that self sabotages. Your thoughts reflect that. You may not believe it, but the back of your head certainly does. The parts of you certainly does. Reality is reflecting it to everybody else around them. So you're always going to look for exactly whatever is going to reconfirm to you who you are. You see, I recently watched the Spider-Man trilogy, and I think I mentioned this earlier this week. Spider-Man, especially in the second movie, he couldn't receive love because he kept running the story in his head that if he allowed himself to receive love, that the ones around him would die. And that happened because of Uncle Ben. So now this story, this traumatic event, started inhibiting him from actually receiving love. And it wasn't until Mary Jane was like, no, you have to let me choose whether I love you or not, whether I want to be a part of your life or not. Then was he actually able to see all the people who actually loved him, because you could see in the movie he deals with a lot of loneliness between the first two movies, and in the third movie he grows into his fullness as Spider-Man, and he finally receives the love that he was looking for. And during the second movie he's questioning the entire time, do I have to suffer to be a hero? And the truth was, he didn't, but his thoughts were reflecting that. Okay, because your thoughts are gonna are produced from the man that you are today, or sometimes from the kid that you were yesterday. You may be in moments where certain events trigger you, and you know what happens, you start thinking like a kid, and you may say to yourself, why the fuck am I thinking these negative ass thoughts? And then it becomes worse because now you're crashing out on a previous version of yourself that was actually thinking these things, and you're making that part of you feel bad, and now you're attracting so much negativity along with that demons that come and influence your behavior and make everything 10 times worse. We create our own spirals. We create our own spirals in our life most of the time, especially if you're someone who's very anxious. Yeah, it's all in your head. I know how it feels though. I know how it feels on a somatic level. I know in your body, your chest starts to tighten. Your forearms may start to feel like they're losing grip. You may start to overthink everything. And it's because the version of you are who you are today feels unsafe. And you're walking into a version of yourself that honestly doesn't know how to exist. So you'll self sabotage right before you enter that threshold. And it feel like hell actually moving along that. So during those moments where you're feeling like that, you have to reaffirm to yourself and tell yourself, that is only the story that I am running. Anytime you're triggered, anytime an event triggers you, you have to reprogram your mind at that moment. It doesn't matter how many fucking affirmations you write every morning. I used to be someone who did not believe in affirmations, okay? Until I started getting into these moments where my mind and my nervous system would get triggered, my body would get triggered. I'd be like, what the fuck is going on? See, affirmations only work if they affirm to yourself who you are and when you have evidence. Okay? Now, sometimes you have to go create that evidence, but that's much easier than fucking fighting against old evidence. It does not take that long to actually get good at something. It takes a long time to to be give yourself permission to be as great as you know you can be at something. Your entire thought process leaves your mind, goes out of your mouth, and aligns your whole body with your spirit, or it doesn't. So if you find yourself feeling restless, pressurized all the time, yeah, that's the truth. You're misaligned, and that all starts with the mind. It's not a mindset, like a mindset shift, okay? Because I honestly, I hate the word mindset because that's a set of beliefs. It's a self-image issue. You know, you could have a great mindset in one area of life that doesn't necessarily transfer to every other area of life, especially if when you're in certain situations, your body is just not allowing you to think clearly.